we're going to flip switch things up just a little bit on the wake up call. We are joined by Mr. Kesley Cambridge. He has a master's degree in applied criminology and forensic psychology. He's also a counselor and local chapter coordinator of Carry Man, that's CARIMAN, not Carry Man, okay? SVG. Good morning, Mr. Cambridge. How are you doing?
Hey, good morning, Crystal. I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
All right, wonderful. Welcome, welcome. So I feel like I want to ask you first things. What is Carry Man? I see man in there, so as we're going to be talking about men, what is Carry Man?
Right, so Carry Man, Caribbean, Carry, and the MAN is Male Action Network. So that's Carry Man, Caribbean Male Action Network.
Okay. What do they do? Male Action Network. So it's a bunch
Right,
of men coming
so
together.
so it's a Caribbean organization, and what we do is that we are advocates for gender, environmental, social justice for men and boys throughout the Caribbean. So we are advocates for gender and social justice, environmental justice for men and boys.
Okay. So perfect, perfect. So this morning, wanted to touch on some things that or some problems. Okay, I don't want to word it as problems. Some challenges. That sounds a little bit better. Some challenges that men have or men go through from time to time. Oftentimes, we touch on women issues, and I would not say it's a neglect on men's issues, but they're not highlighted as much as women's issues. So that is where we're gonna go this morning, right? And you're gonna lead because I'm a woman and you're a guy, so you would know more than I would. I'm learning right now. Maybe we could start off by just giving a general synopsis on the overall state in St. Vincent and the Grenadines concerning challenges that men go through.
Okay, right. So, of course, as you rightly said, when it comes to men and the issues and challenges that they face, there's a tendency for society, not only in St. Vincent, but throughout the world, there's a tendency for men's issues to be overlooked at times. Sometimes that happens. And as a result of that, you find a lot of things are almost swept under the rug, or they're just passed over. And equally as women have challenges, men also do have challenges as well.
Okay.
And these challenges can span from self-esteem issues. It can span from economic issues, being able to be a provider in the home. It can even span from sexual performance as also an issue that some men don't talk about, the whole erectile dysfunction, a range of different issues that men have, but they're not talking about it. Mental health,
Hmm.
men's health. These are some of the issues that challenge men from time to time. And unfortunately, there isn't enough uh, discussion on these issues and for us to identify ways in which we can actually help these men who are challenged, even when it comes to abuse, domestic abuse. We're in
Mm,
16 days activism
yes.
to end violence against women. And of course, Carrie Mann and myself, we do not support violence against women. And although that is the case, there are instances where men too are abused. So there are a range of different issues and challenges that men face, but unfortunately there isn't enough, publicity awareness, public awareness on these topics, so that men who are listening out there who might need help, they're unable to access that help because of what society would say, the stigma, and a range of factors.
Okay. Don't worry, man. We've got you this morning. Okay. So we're gonna deal with as many of these challenges as possible. You've highlighted self-esteem, violence against men, men's health, mental health, erectile dysfunction. I want to start with why do you think men are so reluctant to speak about these issues openly?
Right. So if we're looking at it from a societal standpoint, society unfortunately has, defined what being a true man or what being masculine is about. And one of those things that are not included is for men to open up. So society doesn't say that a man should open up about issues or a man should talk about when things are bothering him. So you're finding that when it comes to talking about what's affecting you for men, in some cases, you would have where men don't want to talk about it because it's not deemed as being a man. Men supposed to shut up, handle your business, do what you had to do, suffer in
Okay, that.
silence, and go through. So
Mhm.
society, unfortunately, and when I say society, you have the different socializing institutions, even the family, even the school, the community. Um, in some instances, and I see this in some instances, the church can also play a role in that. The workplace, a range of different socializing institutions contribute to men not being open about things that are bothering them.
Hmm. That's quite unfortunate. Take us to where or what this can lead to. Men not opening up, men feeling as though they are lesser than or they're not men based on society's definition, whether they are part of a church, whether they are at work, whether they are at school. What can these sort of things lead to?
It can lead to depression. It can definitely lead to depression. It can lead to anxiety, a range of other psychological issues. The whole self-esteem thing. It can even lead to persons using different coping mechanisms, such as using drugs, alcohol, a range of different things to help them cope with them not living up to what societal standards or the whole bar that society has set. So you would find in cases, yes, that men turn to the bottle as a means of comfort. They might take drugs, whether it is uh, cocaine, marijuana, just to get that high. You can find them even turn into to violence in some instances where they lash out at persons because of this, the insecurities that they have. And in other
Mhm.
cases, they just keep to themselves and they just put on that facade, that fake smile that I'm good, and the things aren't really good. So you have a range of different factors and issues and avenues that men take as a means of coping or masking what is affecting them.
Okay. That is rather interesting because for the most part, if you look at a rum shop, most of the persons inside are men. If you see somebody walking down the road who appears to be high or intoxicated, highly intoxicated, most often than not, it's a man. If you look at the statistics at the Mental Health Rehabilitation Center by population, male versus female, most of them are men. How do we deal with a problem like that from the source? Because okay, so you might have the particular problem and you have the symptoms, which are abuse of substance, abuse of alcohol, you have the violence, you have other things that are showing up as symptoms. But how do we treat the source of the problem?
Right. So, as you rightly said, we have to treat the source because unfortunately, it's as if we're cutting at the branches, and branches can be cut and branches would grow back, but the root is still there. So we have to really go to the root of the problem. And I think we have to change the mindset of society. It has to be a cultural shift and a change in order for us to even start to skim the surface when it comes to these issues involving men. As was stated, at the Mental Health Rehabilitation Center, the population of men to female, the ratio, there is a major, difference there. And the thing about it is that unfortunately, we don't have enough safe spaces for men to be able to sit down and talk to somebody. So you need to create an environment where men feel comfortable enough to talk about issues that are bothering them. And I think because we're lacking those sort of safe spaces, those environments, that you find men trying to do things on their own and they're failing at it. Now, there are other instances where some men do have those support systems in place where they can talk about issues that are bothering them, and excellent. But I think there
Mhm.
needs to be more. If we're looking at organizations in St. Vincent that cater to specific needs of men and boys, we're
Mhm.
seeing that it lacks. If there's five, there's a lot, and I'm pretty sure there isn't five. And what we're seeing is that most of these organizations come from the church, which is good by itself. But outside of the church, there really isn't anything that caters to men and their needs. We need to, even if it is to go into the school, the curriculum, to start to inject, the fact that men, boys, it's okay to cry, it's okay to be vulnerable, because just like how women have tear ducts, men also have tear ducts. So I'm
Yeah,
sure
yeah,
that
yeah.
means
It's a human
men
thing.
can cry. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So we have to start to normalize the conversation. And I think that's where the issue is. We aren't normalizing enough the conversation when it comes to men, being able to be vulnerable. It's okay to be weak. It is okay. It's okay to cry. It's okay to say that, I am not okay. It's okay not to be okay. And until we have that serious conversation and doing sessions like these on the radio and even face to face, without COVID, I think that we can really start to
Mhm.
change the narrative when it comes to men and their issues and finding some sort of help.
Okay. Lovely, lovely, lovely. And you have a full support on that because I mean, even as a woman, if you want to say that you are working towards gender equality, you could never have gender equality from one side of the fence. If you're working
Correct.
towards bringing women up to a certain level and trying to level the playing field, you also have to include the men in that journey.
Correct.
And
Yep.
sometimes I feel like we are so hooked and focused, yes, because women have been at a disadvantage, but men have also been at a disadvantage as well. And once we are, or once we continue to push women and change women, develop women, and get women to a certain place, who does she have at her side at that same place? Now, you
Correct.
spoke about safe spaces, right? And
Yep.
I'm going to bring women into that. So, in terms of national safe places, organizational, governmental safe spaces, let's talk about the home and how the woman can create. How can women help? From an individual perspective, how can a woman help?
Simple business talk. If communication is one of the key factors that would help dissolve some situations, and what we find is that when it comes to arguments that happen in the home, these arguments, these issues can be solved by just simply talking about it, having a sit down, talk. If it's a case where you're a family, have some family time. And that is something that used to happen back then. I don't know how often it happens now with this new generation of family members and stuff like that, to sit down and have a conversation. If you're just a couple, communicate. Don't only go out when you have anniversary or all these things. Go out and talk about these things. Because what we find is that, and the thing about it too, is that
Mhm.
men need to be able to talk to, because sometimes when the man, hey, honey, let's talk, he don't shut down right. He ain't want to have kind of conversation because now it's something I do. I either in wash the ways and clean some,
I
and
didn't take on
men too have to,
she again.
exactly, men have to come to that place where you had a talk. You have to sit down and say, okay, honey, babes, sweetie, honey pie, whatever you want to call them. Let me talk
Sugar
about this situation.
dumpling.
This is what it's affecting me. Chunkalunks, whatever you want to use.
I like
We
chunky.
have an issue, we have to talk about it. And I think communication is one of the first steps that both men and women have to take if you want to start the conversation. A conversation can't happen between one person. It has to involve two persons talking about it. So I think talking is one of the key things.
Okay. Talking is one of the key things. Could you share any more? I mean, okay,
Right.
so I guess talking could lead
So,
to understanding, but okay, share some more.
right. So, besides talking about the situation, it is for a man to do some sort of introspection. You have to look inwardly.
Hmm.
So, when you come to that realization and acceptance that something isn't totally right, I have to look inwardly. You have to have accountability as well. You have to be accountable for your actions. So in some instances, men have to come to that place that, okay, I'm not doing something right. Okay, something is bothering me. Okay, how can I change this? Who can I talk to? Where can I go? I have always been saying that besides the home being a place where some sort of therapeutic intervention can happen, I also consider the barber shops. I spoke about this a couple of weeks ago. The barber shops is also a place where a lot of therapy happens. So similar to a saloon where women go to do their hair and you talk all the things that are bothering you while you woman doing your hair. The same thing happens in a barber shop. Fellas can just come and talk and say, yo, this is what the scene are really going on. This woman here, blah, 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 what to do, X, Y, Z. So you have to have sort of accountability. You talk about it. You have to do some sort of introspection. You have, of course, um, get help from a professional. There are counselors
Not
out
from the
there. There are
bottle.
psychologists, right?
Not from the bottle. Get help from a
No, 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 no,
professional,
no.
not from the bottle.
Perfect. Exactly. The bottle can't answer back. And that is why some men go to the bottle because they want too much talking. The bottle ain't gonna tell me no response. So I go drink. You have to come to that
Good point.
place where you're going to say, I need help. If you're honest with yourself, because we're creating a cycle, because you have children who are looking on at you, the father or the mother, and how you handle situations, they will normalize this and say, well, daddy never used to go to talk to anybody about the situation, so why I have to go and do that? And look, daddy is fine. But when you really look at it, daddy is not fine. And he's drinking alcohol, but you don't see all these different things. So we have to put down the bottle, stop the beating, and have a conversation. Talk to a therapist. There are persons out there who are willing to help, but you have to see that yes, you have a problem, you want to fix it. Let us have a conversation. Let us see how we can change the behavior. Let me see how I can guide you to make better decisions in your life. I'm not going to force you or bend your hand. You have to want to make that change in your own life. And we have to get to that place.
All right. So I'm gonna ask you a final question now. I'm not quite finished with the role that women play in either assisting men or sort of contributing to the problem. But at this time, I want to ask you: have you ever? Maybe it's a personal question. Have you ever had to struggle with the society's views of a man and who you think a man should be, or who you've been taught a man should be? Have you ever had that tussle, like internally?
I mean, honestly, yes. Because if I'm to take into consideration the current role that I am playing now as a counselor, growing up and even in the school system, getting into careers such as accounting or something mathematics or something when you're using your hands that is compared to be something that is manly in some instances.
Hmm.
Getting into something that is social service skill, a counselor, even a psychologist, somebody who talks, a therapist, that unfortunately in St. Vincent isn't really deemed as being something that is manly. So when I was going to do my studies and I even, social work and these type of things, I considered, this isn't really something that shows that a man kind of thing. So I had to, do some introspection and be like, you know what, but there aren't a lot of male role models out there, positive role models out there where you can show
Hmm.
that, I can be a difference. So I had to really talk to myself and be like, yo, you can't think what people are going to say. Because if we're looking right now in the government service,
Hmm.
unfortunately, And even in the social services, in the government services, there aren't a lot of men in the social work field, in the counseling field, in the psychology field. There aren't a lot of men. So when I consider that, I struggle to see that, a lot of people might think that this is a woman job. So I didn't want to really do it. So I would have struggled with that growing up, yes. So unfortunately, it affected me, but fortunately, I was able to overcome that by having a very strong support system in place.
Power to you. Power to you, man. Power to you. All right. So we're going to take a little break at this time. If you're just joining us and you joined us a little late, we are joined by Mr. Kesley Cambridge. All right. And we're talking about some of the issues that men go through, some of the challenges that men have from time to time. And he would have outlined in the beginning that men struggle with self esteem, violence against men. All right. Men's health, mental health, physical and mental health. All right. Erectile dysfunction, and the list can go on and on. Now, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back and we're going to try to come up with some more solutions to the problem and perhaps go into a little bit more some of the specific challenges that men have. All right. So keep it locked to the X. We're going to end the live right here on Facebook and then come right back. All right.